Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Novastar Prep webinar. I'm your host, Bernadette Smith, and you are here tonight to learn about maximizing scholarship potential. So perhaps some of you in the audience are parents of high school students. Maybe there's a couple students joining us tonight as well. This certainly can be for all high school age students. I know it's at the forefront of our seniors' minds, certainly, especially this time of year as a lot of scholarship applications become more available and the deadlines start creeping up. But certainly there are scholarships out there for juniors and sophomores, and it's never too early to get started. So welcome to all the parents joining us tonight. Welcome to any of the students in the audience tonight as well. As we dive into the subject in a moment, I do want to let you know that tonight's webinar is being recorded, so it will be shared with everyone who registered. All of those of you that are in attendance tonight will receive the recording as well. You'll receive the Zoom link for it, which is available for 12 days, but we'll also be posting it to our YouTube account. So you'll have a permanent link to go visit this as well, just in case there's anything that pops up on the screen and you don't have a chance to write it down or screenshot it. That will also be available to you. And certainly I'll be able to send anything that you might have missed or be able to fill you in on anything that you had questions about. The other piece to know about tonight's webinar also is that while the Q&A is disabled, the chat is disabled, the Q&A is open. One little hiccup to that is that since I'm hosting alone tonight, it's difficult to see the Q&A while I'm presenting, but I do invite you to please put questions in there when you have them, and I can either stop sharing for a moment or I can get to them at the end to make sure that I answer all of your questions. And then, of course, you will have my contact information if you have follow-up questions from there. So why don't we dive in and start talking about navigating the search and application process for college. First things first, I just would like to let you know if you're joining me for the first time, my name is Bernadette Smith. I am the Academic Sales Director here at Novastar Prep. I've been at the company for a little over 2 years, but I am also a licensed high school guidance counselor. While I'm no longer practicing and working in a school anymore, I do have over a decade of experience working with high school students, both at the private school level as well as in a very large public high school up here in Massachusetts. So certainly I've been helping students with scholarships for a long time, including my own children, but also working with all the students that I've worked with over the decade that I was in the school system. And before that, as a college admissions coach and also as a tutor. So I helped a lot of students while I was a tutor for various colleges complete scholarship applications for grad school and places like that. And just a quick note here, I do have 15 plus years of experience as a writing tutor, ELA tutor, and college English instructor. So I've been tutoring and college coaching and guidance counseling for a long time. So talking about scholarship search process, my hope here is to make it a little bit easier because I know it can be overwhelming and it's hard to know what's worth putting your energy into and what's not. So we'll cover a lot of that tonight. You'll see my email address listed there on the bottom and then again at the end of the presentation so that I can be of assistance to you if you have any questions. But without further ado, here are the topics we're going to cover tonight as we go over scholarships in general, the application process, staying organized. Certainly, I want to go over just the different types of scholarships that are available out there, a little bit about the cost of college, which I think makes us all shake in our boots a little bit with a freshman in college. Myself right now, our oldest daughter is in college. Certainly, the costs are high. So I want to help people understand the other ways to find scholarships. Certainly actually completing the applications. What does that take? What should you expect? What kind of help should you enlist for that? What can you kind of recycle from the college application process? What do you need to be doing to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward when it comes to putting out a scholarship application that gives you a strong chance at being considered a finalist? And then, of course, we'll talk a little bit about how to stay organized with all of this because there will be varying deadlines, there will be varying requirements, and it's another entire application process to manage while your student is trying to manage being a high school senior or a high school junior, whatever it might be. So first things first, we're going to go into that overview of scholarships that I mentioned in general. And so truth be told, this is not going to cover every possible type of scholarship in the world because there are a lot out there and a lot that are a little bit more niche or a little bit more specific for certain schools and things of that nature. We do want to cover the basics here. So it's being a little slow. Hold on. There we go. So the types of scholarships we're going to discuss tonight are those that are considered merit-based, those that are need-based, those that are targeted, and those that are more so for the local community. These are things that you're going to see like from the VFW and places like that. So we're going to talk about those, what they are. Then there's some more specifics we'll get into as we continue throughout that. So merit-based scholarships are exactly what they sound like. This is based truly on a student's academic achievements. This is not taking into consideration financial need, unless it's a joint scholarship. So you're going to hear me say this a lot. There's some that are going to have some asterisks on it. But typically speaking, this is based entirely on a student's merit when it comes to academics, their merit when it comes to a particular leadership skill, a special talent. This is, you can see that happen sometimes with music. You'll see it in athletics, certainly, and then certainly in the arts. But you can also imagine that a lot of this is based on one's GPA or on one's test scores. So one thing we talk about in our test optional webinar is that there's still a lot of scholarships out there that even if the school is test optional, a scholarship considers it. So it's another reason to have that test score in your pocket. But there's national merit scholarships, or the national merit scholarship specifically. Then there's specific college scholarships for high GPAs or outstanding test scores. So, this would be what you might see that come in an award letter from a college saying that, for all students that have a 3.5 or above, they're awarded a $5,000 Lyceum Achievement Award. Like that was one that I remember from a college that I worked at in the past. Then there's some called the Presidential Scholarship, in whatever title the school wants to give it, that's based on either like a GPA threshold, a score threshold with the SAT or the ACT, sometimes a combination of the two for those students who achieved a 4.0 as well as a 1450 and above on the SAT, whatever it might be. Random numbers I'm throwing out there, but that's something what you can expect when we're talking about merit-based scholarships. Then there's need-based scholarships. So again, title tells you exactly what it means. This is for students with demonstrated financial need to help offset college costs. This is typically determined through the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. As some of you may have heard or gone through with older children of yours, the FAFSA was a mess last year. They rolled out a streamlined version and it had every hiccup on the planet. It did affect a lot of students' ability to attend school. Frankly, it was a disaster. This year, it has seemed to be smoother. They've promised a smoother process. I'm hoping when we come time to see what packages students get, and our tutors do work with students on completing the FAFSA. As much as it's, based on parental income and things like that, there's a lot of nuances to filling it out, even though they've streamlined it. It should be a lot shorter than it used to be. Back when I filled it out a million years ago, it did take, a good hour to complete it. Now it's supposed to be much shorter than that. So keep that in mind. And then there's also the CSS profile, which some schools require. That can also be a factor in determining need-based aid. So you do want to check and see if the school that you applied to this year have been accepted to when you're looking ahead to next year, if they also require the CSS profile. That is a program that is through the College Board. It's another thing. You're filling out almost the exact same questions as the FAFSA, but it is required by certain schools. You in general will be filling out the FAFSA no matter what, but some students will also be filling out the CSS profile. And some examples of this can be, on the federal level, like Pell Grants, which are awarded based on a percentage of, what a family's income is. Scholarships from colleges that are based strictly on need for a family, and that can take into consideration, of course, obviously the family's overall income, but how many students are currently in college as well, knowing that that can be difficult for families to manage as well. It mentions here, scholarships from colleges with robust financial aid programs, schools that offer a lot of merit-based aid is what that truly means. All right, and then targeted scholarships, this can be things like based on specifics, characteristics, affiliations, identities. This can be religion-based. Typically, you'll see some out there just based on field of study. You're going to become a nurse. This is a nursing scholarship. You're going to become a Go into engineering, this is an engineering scholarship. And even if it's something like extremely specific, like, you're going to participate in an archaeology program, anything like that, zoology, there's scholarships out there for that. Can be based on race and gender, can be based on your religious affiliation, and filling out some kind of scholarship form related to that. Typically you're going to see an essay with this also. So those can be, as you can tell, this is very, very broad. There's a lot of things that could fall under targeted scholarships. So as I mentioned, you're going to see a lot of overlap tonight between types of scholarships. There are scholarships out there specifically for women in STEM. There are scholarships out there for different minority groups. There's scholarships out there for children of military members. I joke about this one. There are scholarships available for left-handed people. There are scholarships available for women over 5'10". There's if you can think of it, there's a weird scholarship out there that is specifically for people whose last names end in Y. There's just different things out there that are worth looking at, and taking a peek at whether or not you meet those qualifications for that. And as much as some of that sounds silly, I have had students apply for the left-handed scholarship and things like that. So keep your eyes open, take a peek at these targeted ones, because sometimes when something's super specific, you're going to find a smaller pool of applicants and a greater chance of being awarded that scholarship. And then, local and community scholarships. Sometimes these are provided by community organizations. For example, if there's an economic development group in the town, that's responsible for, it's business members join that, and that they might be, a force behind different community initiatives. They may have a scholarship fund. Rotary clubs, religious institutions, your church might have one, your synagogue might have one, local businesses might have one geared towards, students that attend the schools in that town. So you can find those, the VFW, Veterans of Foreign War specifically, anything with, the American Legion. You'll find different things with, back when I was applying, there was a very specific one for family members of Vietnam veterans. My dad fought in Vietnam. I was one of the kids left who was in that age group who could have, had a parent fight in that, and that was an available one through a local community one that was for veterans with disabilities. They often, like I said, have smaller applicant pools, making them less competitive. This could be, a wide variety of community-run organizations that throughout the year collect funds for a scholarship fund, and then have a team that collaborate to go through applications and award them to people locally rather than on the national level. Those are the ones that you're going to find a little bit more success with than competing with thousands and thousands and thousands of students nationally. All right. And not to be Debbie Downer tonight, but talking a little bit about the cost of college facts, like the facts in terms of cost of college, excuse me. One thing we do know, that college tuition has certainly gone up. You don't need the data to know that. It's just very clear out there, but tuition inflation averaged 3.63% annually from 2010 to 2011, and then from 2022 to 2023. The cost of tuition at public four-year institutions increased 36%, almost 37% from 2010 to 2023. So those are some things to keep in mind. The cost has changed. This has also caused a shift in college admissions, where we're seeing more students apply to some of our state universities where, last year Virginia Tech had 56,000 applicants. That's an insane number for one school. And you've seen that people are trying to find better ways to afford college. Scholarships are one of them. The average cost of college in 2024, 2025, so what kids will be paying for this year, is $38,000 per student per year, which also includes books, supplies, daily living expenses. So that's factored in after financial aid comes out. This is where this average kind of comes to. And, one little thing about scholarships here, a typical high school student may have the qualifications for as many as 50 to 100 scholarships. Some of these are going to be really quick and easy to fill out. Other ones are going to be time consuming. Not to say that every student needs to apply to 100 scholarships necessarily, but if there's a mix of some quick ones, some more thoughtful ones where you can recycle a little bit of what you already have, one where you can put a ton of effort in because you're very qualified for it, a little bit of a mix here, but that stat's important because a lot of kids think, oh, I would never get a scholarship, so why would I try? You certainly can. And, you know, the other facts about scholarships out there is they're not always for $30,000. They're not always for $50,000. They're not always for full rides, but little incremental scholarships can really add up and help offset that first semester bill. All right. So now we're going to talk a little bit about finding scholarships, and there's a variety of ways to do this. Some are more time consuming than others, some are more lucrative than others, and there's some that you need to be a little bit careful about as you look at them and decide whether or not you're going to spend your time on it. So there's a couple different ways to look at this. One is through databases, and you may have heard of some of these before. We're going to look at them next. Then there's the institutional scholarships, which those are the ones coming directly from the colleges themselves. And then there's the local and community ones that I mentioned earlier, but how do you actually go out and get those? All right, so this is by no means an exhaustive list of the databases out there, but there are some that my students in the past have used more regularly, some that have a little bit better reputations than others. But that, you got to keep in mind, like signing up for scholarships.com, you're going to get a lot of emails from them. Sometimes it's going to be helpful scholarships that are certainly geared towards your student and seem like a good fit. And other times it's going to be a list of 20 scholarships that you're like, why would this one come my way? So take that as you may, because you can find a diamond in the rough. You can find something really specific that could be a great one to apply for. But you are going to see ones, and you see this noted at the bottom here, that feel a little bit more like a lottery or a little bit more like a sweepstakes, where it's kind of like you're throwing your information in there, then you might get a bunch of marketing emails, and then it might be that, 40,000 students applied, and it doesn't seem like, obviously they're not going to give out $40,000 scholarships. So there's things like that where it takes you 2 seconds, and then, you can unsubscribe from the marketing emails later. Great, cool, see how it works out. But knowing that the chances are a lot more difficult when it's those scholarships that are for a wide variety of students, in the tens of thousands. These ones I did list because I do feel as though I've had positive experiences with them with my students. I've felt that they're a little bit more reliable. But at the end of the day, look at them, as a way of finding scholarships. You may find a scholarship on there and choose to go to that scholarship's own website and apply directly through there, see if there's something more updated. You can also do it all in one place. It's kind of nice. It's almost like having the Common App again and having a lot of things housed in one space. So see it as a tool, but not an end-all be-all for your scholarship search process. And there's a couple that I've left off here before. I haven't had students have a lot of experience with the one called Going Merry. That one, a lot of my students at my previous high school applied for a lot of scholarships for and never heard anything, not even, a rejection necessarily. And there's been some comments on different forums online about whether or not students are being awarded scholarships there. I'm certain that some have, of course, it's been around, but there's just some that are worth your time a little bit more. FastWeb's been around for a long time. Niche has been around for a long time. And Big Future, for example, is part of the College Board. So it certainly is trustworthy, but there's some caveats to that as well. So you'll see on this next slide, and apologies that it's a little cut off there on the left, that Big Future has this newer thing where it's about completing certain tasks. Your students, through their College Board accounts, get entries for scholarships by completing these post-secondary related tasks, such as starting your college list. You're going to be given an entry to win a $500 scholarship. Starting your scholarship list, then you're an entry to win a $500 scholarship. Same thing with completing the FAFSA, applying to college. The first two there, they can track on their own website. They know that you started a career list on there. You started a scholarship list on there. And then you can see starting a college list, for example, on the class of 2026 and 2027. That's a newer feature that would also create an entry for a student. The other two pieces there, completing the FAFSA and completing applying to college, they're going to ask you to send screenshots or confirmation emails to prove that you did those things. But it's a way to earn entries into these larger scholarships. All of those also put every student, once they even complete one of them, into the ability to win a $40,000 scholarship. And it rolls over every month. So it's certainly worth a student's time, because at the same time, you're completing all of these tasks that you should be completing anyway, and it's a little bit more of an incentive for that. They do have a lot of frequently asked questions on their website, and you can go there, and I'll send you all the link as well about, who does win these scholarships and how many can you win? Can you only win one? And you can only win one $40,000 scholarship, but you can win multiple 500, and those can all tally up. So again, this one, the College Board is very legitimate. As you know, they house the SAT and AP testing. It's certainly one that you can feel good about putting your name behind. And all of the steps you're completing are helpful to your child's process for applying to college or completing the actual transition to college. All right. So then the next one we were going to talk about is institutional scholarships. So these are the scholarships that are provided directly by the college or university to their admitted students. So this would be after a student applies and they're admitted, that they would be awarded this as part of their financial aid award letter. Or sometimes you might get notification of that before the rest of your financial aid comes through, but it might be in your acceptance letter. So sometimes you'll get an acceptance letter that says, and we're happy to, share that Katie has also won a $3,000 Lyceum Achievement Award, and that might be because of a certain GPA. Then you'll get another letter with additional things listed in it. Some schools choose to put a little bit in the acceptance letter. Some schools choose to wait and send a separate one. This will also all be in the applicant portals that your students have to be able to go in and, see the little check boxes about financial aid, awards, things like that, that they had to create after they applied. So typically speaking, these are all automatic considerations. So that just means by applying and sharing your information, by applying to the college, not to any specific scholarship, by being a college applicant to that particular university, that you would be automatically considered by the institution, typically based off of GPA, SAT, ACT scores, those financial need ones we mentioned before. So not the grants, not the things that come from the federal government, this would be an automatic one that the school houses that is need-based. Special talents, this can also be, students that are going on to be athletes at particular colleges. Specific programs have their own different scholarships that they give out. So a student might be awarded a nursing scholarship. Another student might be awarded one for landscape architecture. So there's different ones there. This, typically speaking, does not require any extra applications on the part of a student. This is just that they're considered immediately, like those ones I mentioned that are for 3.0 and above, for 3.5 and above, for 4.0 and above, etc. Then there are some exceptions. There are some universities that will have a separate application for a very specific scholarship. So there are some incredibly competitive merit scholarships that might warrant some additional essays or another letter of recommendation. There's certain ones that are for specific majors where they're like, you've been accepted to this major. Would you like to apply for this scholarship that is for students that have done X, Y, and Z? Sometimes they're for extracurricular achievements. Sometimes they're based on, a school's mission statement in terms of like, if they're very community service based, there might be something there available for a student that they could apply for. Sometimes there's one buried on the financial aid website that some students don't even see when they're an incoming student, that they can go apply for, and then they can go look for that one later as a matriculating student as well. And then the other piece of this would be renewability. Often these scholarships are renewable each year. There are some that will be very specific and say this is just a 1 year only, but the vast majority awarded by institutions would be for each academic year, as long as the student maintains certain requirements. Typically speaking, it's a GPA requirement. So, okay, we're giving you this $10,000 scholarship. You can have it every year as long as you have a 3.25 or above for a GPA. And usually they don't rip it away from you the second you get a 3.23. Sometimes they'll put you on academic probation or something like that, or give you a warning that that could happen. Some will just, certainly if you dip far below, will take it away. But usually they're anticipating that a student would be able to maintain that based on the automatic consideration they got for with their grades, with their SAT scores, things like that. But usually there's just some conditions set by the college, disciplinary ones, that you're not getting in trouble at school, that you're meeting the academic requirements, that you are enrolled full time. Usually that will be another one as well. Typically speaking, they're not going to give the same, let's say $10,000 scholarship to a part-time student. Or if you started full-time and then you go part-time, they might take that scholarship away. So these are all things to make sure that you read through when you're awarded a particular scholarship. On that award letter as well, you may see some loans added in there, and you want to make sure you're not saying yes to those unless you like the terms and would like to proceed with them. You want to say yes to all the free money. So anything that's like a Pell Grant, or if it's a scholarship based on your GPA, you want to say yes to all the free money, and then really think through the different things about if anything is a loan that you need to pay back. All right. And so thinking about, institutional scholarships very specifically, and I did just mention this, so I'll be quick, some of them are merit-based from the school. So this is high academic achievement. Some of the institutional scholarships are need-based. So that will be strictly based on a student's FAFSA, and this would be in conjunction with other financial aid awarded. Sometimes they're very specific to a program. So I mentioned that before. That could be from the business school. That could be from the School of Nursing. That could be from the School of Liberal Arts. It could be very specific. These are usually used as a way to draw students to certain fields and also to really pull in some of the top applicants so that they attend that school. Athletic scholarships are very different, and these are offered to D1 athletes as a recruitment tool. There are not it's strictly D1 when we're talking about full-blown 100% paid for, attend Virginia Tech and play on the football team, for example. Please note, for any of you that are in that boat, NIL, which is relatively new to the college scene, which is name, image, and likeness. That is students getting paid in addition to tuition for their name, image, and likeness. So jerseys, anything where they're on a billboard, whatever it might be, because they're attracting people to attend sporting events. Those are in addition to any athletic scholarships. Now, the other one I mentioned are local and community scholarships. So typically speaking, when we're searching for these, your first stop should be the school counseling department. And some schools still call it the guidance department, but most schools have transitioned to calling it school counseling. So you want to make sure that, or the college counseling and college and career counseling center, wherever your guidance counselor is, wherever your school counselor is, typically speaking, those local scholarships are often posted and managed through the high school's counseling or guidance department, sometimes in the registrar's office as well, because they're handling all of the transcript requests associated with it. These can include those awards I mentioned before from local businesses, civic groups, alumni associations. So your first stop should be with your school counselor or with the registrar. Also, if your school uses Naviance, for example, so that learning management system that would have like your categories in it for comparing schools, where your SAT scores are, things like that, that, were manually put in there. You listed your own schools in there, requested transcripts from there, any system like that. Most schools do post all of the scholarships on Naviance as well. Some schools will have their own page on their website about it, or guidance will manage it. That's where you'll find all of these. So if all else fails and you're not sure where to go, talk to your school counselor. They will be able to direct you towards those local and community scholarships. And you will be surprised when you realize there's one about if you did youth soccer, then that doesn't mean you were on the high school soccer team, but you played soccer in 6th grade with the youth team in town. You can apply for those scholarships. There's other ones out there that you're going to be surprised to see. And so you'll want to get that full list that's available to high school seniors. And you'll want to be able to see all the deadlines, the requirements, the different forms you need to complete. Most of the time, it is not going to be the school counseling department that submits those applications for you, but they have them and they're going to help you with the other pieces, like the transcripts, the letters of recommendation. And then you're going to follow the specific instructions from the organization to submit those. The next one would be municipal offices and local organizations. So as I mentioned, the vast majority you should find through the counseling department in this regard, But you should inquire at local municipal offices like the town hall, like the Rotary Club, a Chamber of Commerce, to see what they have for scholarship opportunities. Worst case scenario, you make a good impression on someone that you're asking about it. Best case scenario, you find one that isn't posted to the school and you can be one of few applicants for it. They may target students in specific towns or neighborhoods. They could be based on community service, family background. You know, there's going to be one from the Italian American vets. There's going to be one that's, you know, specific to, you know, I'm thinking of different community clubs around me here that could be very specific to, you know, oh, okay, if your family's been a member of this for a long time, you can apply. Then you're also going to want to talk to local businesses and employers. There are a lot of businesses that like to offer scholarships to students in their local areas. These are businesses that like to give back to the towns that they occupy. And so it's always worth it to see if you have a job, for example, and you work at a local restaurant, did they offer a $250 scholarship and you just didn't know about it, or you know, your boss didn't think to mention it? Ask about it. See if there's anything where there's local, you know, corporations that like to give back to their community, and they might have one. So think about the corporations that exist in your town or in neighboring towns, because sometimes they might do a regional scholarship. Excuse me. And they might be available. We always see them through local banks. Banks like to give out scholarships. See if like the town bank, like the smaller one, maybe not Bank of America, but maybe it's one that's smaller to your town. Insurance companies have these as well, and any of the larger employers in the community. And then for you parents too, see at your work if there are any scholarships offered to families there. Sometimes you'll find out that there's one that the corporation gives out and it's specific to the field related to your corporation, or it could be very general and it's an open pool that your student could apply for. So that's another one that gives them a better chance at it as well. And then certainly, as I mentioned before, we're going to be, you know, you should talk to local chapters of organizations like the Rotary Club, the Elks Club, the Knights of Columbus, religious institutions that provide scholarships for students within that community. And some of these may be open to members of the organizations, local communities. Sometimes it's specific to members of the organization. So you'll want to find out more about that. But if you belong to any of these groups, it's worth finding out a little bit more and seeing what you need to do to be considered for that. Then there's some that are specific interest or identity-based scholarships. So these are often a little bit less competitive than national scholarships and focus on supporting underrepresented students in higher education. So sometimes these can be for veterans, these can be for minority groups. They might be geared towards a specific career field and they want to see more students go into that particular field, for example. And then local scholarships for academic achievement. Some scholarships are awarded on academic performance, extracurricular involvement, or community service. And any of these, again, just to really hit the point home, talk to your school counselor about these opportunities, because they may not realize their caseloads may be big and they may not realize that there's a few out there that you qualify for, and they wouldn't think to mention it to you, but you may want to share with them an updated version of your activities resume, for example, and then they find out that you've always been in your youth group, or they find out that you've always been a babysitter and there's a specific scholarship out there for that. So give them a little bit of an opportunity to make sure that they can help match you as well. Certainly, working with a college coach can also be helpful with this to manage all of these, you know, several, you know, at least a couple scholarship applications, if not 20, 30, 40 of them. All right, so I don't see any questions in the Q&A just yet, so I won't dismiss my screen at this moment, but we'll move on to actually completing the applications. What are some strategies here that can make you stand out? What can you make sure that you're not one in a big pile? How do you get the attention of the committee that's reviewing it? So we'll talk a little bit about the application itself, the essays that are required for some of them, the extra requirements that come through for some of them, and what do you do after you submit? So first and foremost, with the application, staying organized with deadlines and requirements is going to be huge. This is because, one, you're entering another phase of a bunch of applications being due, And if you did a bunch that were due early action, for example, for your college applications, or or you're about to do a bunch of regular decision ones, you've kind of had like 2, maybe 3 dates in mind. Okay, I did a bunch of November 1st ones. I had a random December 1st early action. Then I have a January 2nd one due for regular decision, whatever it might be. This, you might have a May 15th, an April 1st, a February 22nd, a late one that's due in some of the local ones will be due before senior award night, for example. So you're going to see those deadlines be before then. But you're going to have a lot, and you're going to have a lot of different requirements for all of these. So staying organized with a calendar or a spreadsheet will be really helpful here. I view it, when I was working with students, still as the same exact thing as the college application process. We need a spreadsheet, we need to be tracking the due dates for everything, and we need to see which ones have a ton of supplemental things we need to submit for it, which is just hitting submit and basically just filling out my demographic information. So how do we make sure we prioritize the ones that are going to take the most time, those that are due the soonest, and which ones require the least amount of effort and can be done, close to the deadline, no harm, no foul, but the other ones are going to take a lot more thoughtful processing. For this, I do suggest working with a college coach for ultimate organization. When I was still a college coach here, I certainly worked with a lot of students on managing that process, because you're also still trying to get through senior year or trying to get through junior year, and you have a lot on your plate. You have other exams coming up. You're anxiously awaiting a decision coming from, your top college choice. There's other things that you might be required to do. You might still be working on regular decision applications, and you're trying to balance that plus the scholarship application that you really want to finish that's due around the same time, but you're perfect for. So working with somebody to make sure you stay organized will be really helpful here, but it will also give you a bit of a leg up, because this is what people like myself do all the time, is help students stand out and help students identify the best fit scholarships for them that give them the best chance at cutting that cost of college down. This, I would say this for the college application process as well, really carefully filling out forms and reviewing for accuracy. And it sounds silly, but like the simple things, capitalizing where necessary, spelling names correctly, not missing a beat on demographic information that you're entering, making sure you did follow all of the instructions, as you can see for the next bullet point there, carefully. File types, did they ask it to be in a PDF and you just sent it as a Word doc? All of these things, you want to show attention to detail, and you want to show that you're taking this seriously. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be a panel of, maybe it's 2 people, maybe it's 1 person deciding, maybe it's 6 people deciding whether or not you are worthy of that scholarship and if they want to give funds to you. They want to give it to somebody who took their time with this, that obviously truly deserved it based on the qualifications, and that showed that they're taking it seriously. In my career on both college applications, job applications, and then certainly here with scholarship applications, I do stress to all of my students, you can't just type this as though it's a text message. It doesn't show a ton of respect for the process, and it doesn't show that you have a lot of attention to detail. So think of it the same way as filling out an application for a job and filling out an application for college. You want to put yourself out there as the most professional version of yourself, the most respectful version of yourself, and someone who is very serious about winning this award. And then following all the instructions carefully. I can't tell you how many times students will submit scholarship forms and think they're done and realize, okay, yeah, I submitted the essay, but it wanted 2 more letters of recommendation. Or it said I had to send this specific form from the FAFSA and I never sent it. They're not going to beg you all the time to send the information. They're going to want it all at once. Some very nice ones out there will be like, hey, Bernadette, you forgot to submit your FAFSA form. But for the most part, you want to make sure that you are checking every box. I saw one earlier today that was very specifically for members of the track and field team. And it was this organization that wanted to know your best times on every single race. And if you threw shot put, what was your best distance? And some students leaving it blank or just kind of guessing. They want you to go and look at your actual records for that. So these are important things to make sure you're paying attention to. I know it can feel like a flippant thing at points where you're like, oh, I don't think I'm going to get it, but I'm just going to throw it in. But you don't want to ever look back and wonder, if I had taken that a little bit more seriously, could I have been a finalist? Or maybe they have tiers of awards for it. Could you have won the $250 for it? All of these things. Take it very seriously, put your best foot forward. And now the essays. So not every single one of these scholarships that you're going to fill out is going to require an essay. Like I said, some are going to feel like you literally are just putting your name, your email address, your high school, where you're going to college or where you might want to go to college, and hitting submit. Those are going to be the national ones. Those are going to be ones that feel, like I said, a little bit more lottery-like and a little bit less merit-based. In those cases, odds are you're not submitting a massive essay. There are national ones that have huge essay requirements. And this is where we want to think about, for those types of large scholarships, for anything institutional based, that would be a separate thing that requires a scholarship. And then of course, for those local and smaller scholarships. When they're looking for an essay here, they're looking the same way a college admissions coach is going to look at it, but with the eyes of their scholarship organization in mind. And what is the mission there? Who are they hoping they get to help by issuing these scholarship funds? And so first things first, this is the same for college admissions essays as it is for scholarship essays. Be authentic in your essay. People are going to be sitting there reading through these, and they don't want to read the same essay 7 times in a row, which is, I won my high school baseball championship and I learned the value of teamwork. They want to be reading something that is your actual voice, that sounds like you, and not necessarily that you're trying to sound the most scholastic that you've ever sounded or trying to sound the most academic you've ever sounded. But if they're asking you a very specific question, you want to show attention to that question and show growth. And we'll go over some specifics for that as we look at different types of questions. But it's important to keep in mind that this is sometimes the only chance they're going to hear your voice, and it's going to be in writing. Not every scholarship foundation has an interview component. So this will be a chance for avoiding generalities and making sure that they get a sense of who you are or who your student is. So again, you don't want to be sounding, assuming this is what they want to hear. You want to sound like yourself. Then, of course, you want to tailor that essay to the scholarship's mission. If this is a nursing related scholarship, you certainly understand that those are individuals who are in a helping profession, or that's an organization that supports helping professions. So what is their mission? And you want to make sure that what your essay reflects aligns with what they're looking for. You want to show that your goals match that, because when they're offering a scholarship, they're hoping to advance the education or career of somebody in that field, somebody in that community, somebody within that organization, whatever it might be. They're trying to make sure that they're finding a strong fit for that award. And so you really need to understand where you're applying and what they stand for. And that goes the same for colleges when we're talking about that. We know Virginia Tech has an emphasis on serving your community. It's important to reflect that in your responses to them, just as it would be important to reflect in your responses to the local business economic development organization. If you're going into school for business and you have goals associated with that, you want to show what those goals are and how it relates back to the overall mission. Of course, it goes without saying, we want to proofread, and seek feedback from tutors and from mentors. You want to always review it, of course, for spelling, grammar, clarity. You also want to have somebody who hasn't been staring at it as long as you have, right? Like there's a chance we tend to auto-correct in our head. You need another pair of eyes on it because we can fix a lot of things or read it out loud to ourselves as though we're skipping that, thing that we conjugated wrong or that comma that we missed or whatever it might be. And we know our own story usually. So we might be leaving something out that a third party would say, I don't get where you're going with this. So maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's a tutor, a college coach here. Provide feedback on any errors, anything you missed, and make sure that it's polished and effectively conveys that message that you're getting out there. You want somebody to be able to make sure that it's attached to that mission. Like, okay, you wrote this essay, it's a great essay, but does it fit with the Rotary Club of Marlboro? Maybe not. Does it fit with this particular one that's for students of a specific religious background? How do we tie it in more? Work with somebody on that, because this is a chance to get something that's possibly renewable every year, or something that can simply offset the cost of buying books or a laptop freshman year. This can help with a lot of little things as well. And so here's some examples. You might be wondering, what kind of essay questions are they going to ask me? And sometimes they're very specific, sometimes they're very vague, sometimes they're more like, tell me about yourself. Some will straight up use a Common App essay. I've seen this before on several scholarship applications. So this one is directly from the Common App itself, and it's a prompt that they've used every year consistently for the last several years, which is some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. If it's going by the Common App guidelines there, typically speaking, this would be 650 words or less. They may specify otherwise on their own application, but this is the intended length of this essay. For that, when you think about it, and I give the same advice when I'm doing a college essay workshop, background, identity, interest, or talent, that could be anything. Odds are you can write an essay that can fit this pretty easily in terms of having a topic, right? Like that, if there's something important about your family, something important about your identity, something that you affiliate yourself with, a really interesting and unique interest that you have, a bizarre talent you'd like to share, whatever it might be, a million things fit into this. You could also take your Common App essay if you responded to this prompt and rework it for a scholarship essay. If there's something you need to do to tweak it to appeal more to that scholarship committee, or if it works as is, but maybe there's just, you got to cut down the length, that's an opportunity here to recycle something you've already written and use it in this opportunity. But then there's ones that are very specific, like how will the scholarship help you? So you're not going to necessarily be able to recycle much from the college admissions process. So that will be talking specifically about what opportunities and doors that would open for you if you were to win that scholarship. Some are straightforward with how have you contributed to your community. And they're not looking there for a list of here's the 6 places I volunteered at because I literally was required to do so to graduate, or I needed to do it to be part of the National Honor Society. They want to find out even more so. Did you contribute to your to your neighborhood, for example? Were you the person that was always helping people in a snowstorm by shoveling their driveways? Were you somebody who consistently participated in a 5K every year that raised money for X, Y, and Z charity, whatever that might be? A lot of times here, students feel the need to list every single community service experience they've ever had, when it's really more so about listing the most meaningful and how it impacted your community directly. Straight up, what are your academic and or career goals? So what I mentioned before, this could be related to those that are more program-based, major, the major you're going to have, a particular industry. Do any of these relate to it? And sometimes it might be coming from an organization where there isn't necessarily an agenda about a specific field. So they're generally curious, what are you going to study? What would you like to do? And they're looking for someone who's looking ahead to their future. They're not just trying to get through first semester of freshman year. And you can certainly be very, very clear about being not entirely sure about every aspect of your career plan, but that you're looking for these opportunities. Like one of the big reasons we all go to college, right, is, certainly to prepare for that future career, but we know kids change their mind. And so do the people reading these essays. But do you have a goal of gaining a greater understanding of certain things and developing your independence and cultivating greater, critical thinking skills and working as a team member, getting out of your comfort zone, and then tie in some of the specifics. At this point in my life, I see myself becoming this in the medical field. I see myself entering a helping profession, and this is why. There'll usually be some requirements here in terms of verbiage and how long it can be. So you'll want to be working on being really concise and to the point and conveying your growth or your goals or what that might be. I've seen a brief essay explaining future goals and financial need. So it's kind of tying in both. Okay, what are your goals and what is the extent of your financial need? How would this help you? This one, how has your experience in the Westboro School District contributed to who you are today? So that can be one that's given like as an opportunity for all students in the school district to complete? And what is it about your experience in your particular school district that has made you the student you are today with the goals you have for tomorrow? Pick an experience from your own life and explain how you interest you. I mean, that is incredibly vague, but it opens a lot of doors. I've read some of the most unique college essays over the years where I was blown away by, somebody writing, this is something about like the thoughts they have in the shower and how that changed something for them one day. And sometimes it could be, a tragedy that somebody describes here and explains how it's influenced them. Sometimes it's a beautiful experience that changed what they thought about, their future. It could be a difficulty that they had with a friend. There could be a lot of things here. Again, this goes back to being authentic and workshopping these with somebody, talking through like, what would be the best one? You have more stories than you think. And I always encourage students to talk to their friends and their family and say, is there a story I should be telling about myself that maybe when you talk about me, you bring that up? And I wouldn't think that about myself, so I wouldn't share it. And then certainly, like I said, working with a coach to really flesh out these ideas and make sure that you're getting your point across. And finally, you see one here, what impact would this scholarship have on your education? I picked one here just to give you a little bit of a tip or two in terms of how to answer these questions. How will this scholarship help you? So there are going to be a lot of students who will say, bluntly, this will lower my tuition bill and make it more affordable for me. They know that. We don't want to say what they already know. This is the same advice I give about, we don't want to, when we fill out the why us college essay question, we don't want to say I want to attend Assumption University because their psychology program is ranked number 5. They know that. They don't care. They already know. They spent the marketing money on that. For this, they know that a scholarship will help you afford college. Even if you can fully afford college, they know it will make the bill smaller. But what can you do to really tie in that scholarship to your goals, showing how it directly supports your future plans? This will give me the opportunity to attend my dream school versus the school that offered me more financial aid. You can be clear about that and construct it in a really thoughtful way. You can also say it's about attending a particular school that's in a particular area that gives you more opportunities internship-wise, and to go seek those opportunities with study abroad or whatever it might be. You do want to mention financial relief, certainly. Is there any way that this is going to ease financial stress? Are you one of 8 siblings and you're all going to go to college? Did your family go through something in the last couple of years? Did the pandemic affect you in a certain way where your family endured layoffs and there was a financial hiccup that occurred with that? Did you lose a family member? Did something happen with someone's health? Is there anything just in terms of financial stressors that you can explain here in terms of how this scholarship will help you? You want to be more specific there versus just saying it will reduce the bill. Everything that you do with applying to college, applying to scholarships, it's about highlighting personal growth. You want to show how it helps you pursue opportunities that will help you continue to grow, that you know where this could take you, that this is a vehicle that will help you reach those goals. And also, you want to indicate, like, a scholarship is a beautiful thing for a company to give, for an organization to give. And of course, I know they get tax benefits and things like that, but you do want to show how you're going to pay that forward as well. You want to show that being given this opportunity and being given this gift to be part of making that opportunity more attainable, that there's a way you're going to make a positive impact on your community or in your field. That would be for those ones that are very specific to a certain field, right? Like, is there something you can share there? Is there something, if this is community service based, is there something you can indicate about how you will pay that forward and take this positive in your life and present that to someone else or to many other people in the future? So there's a lot of ways to approach all of these different essay questions. I do suggest you work with a college coach on these to make sure that you have that support as you go through it, because the personalized feedback is going to be fantastic, but also it's going to help you craft new essays and take previously written ones and adapt them to scholarship requirements. That little tweaking process can take a little bit of a time. And so you want to make sure that you have somebody who's done it before sitting with you and being like, I know what works, I know what doesn't, I know what they don't want to hear, I know what they're bored of hearing. How can we tell your story and make sure that you are at the top of that pile, even if there's a couple thousand applicants. Refining your voice, helping that authentic voice shine through. Sometimes students will try to write in a very academic tone when it might not be the right tone for that particular essay, or it doesn't quite sound like them. I joke with students at times where I say, like, I remember the first time I went to the orthodontist and I tried to smile like super straight and not have an overbite and things like that. And he was like, I need your real smile. That's how we can address things. They want to hear your real thing. Don't put something out there that's not you. And of course, we want polished, error-free writing. Little things like this can bring it down to at the end where they're like, oh, I mean, these two candidates are really close together, but this one didn't proofread it. That could be really hard. And this is a chance for somebody to catch a couple little mistakes and things like that that you might not have otherwise caught. And then strategic storytelling. We want to make sure we're framing the most impactful stories. So everything we just talked about, how are we tying this into that particular organization? How are we tying something that happened to you into your future goals and why this scholarship would change things? We want to align them with the organization, but also show them a lot about yourself. Everything is going to be about your growth. So making sure that you're very strategic about this. You want to walk away knowing that you have a really good chance at some of these scholarships, or knowing that you put the best application out there. For the national ones, again, you're going to be up against thousands and thousands of students. But for these local ones, it could be you and 10 other students. It could be you and 4 other students. It could be you and 25 students. See what gives you the best chance here. And so, of course, you want to put your best foot forward on this. Then the other piece here, and I know we're getting a little close on time, did want to mention the extra requirements. So many scholarship applications will require official transcripts and official SAT scores. Typically speaking, you're going to send those transcripts through your guidance department or the registrar, or through a copy obtained through these offices. Some will say we just need a screenshot, that's fine. Other ones will say it has to be officially sent from the registrar. So they're looking for that sealed envelope, or that, more so now, the email from the registrar's office sending your transcript over so that they know that it is an authentic transcript. For SAT, ACT scores, a lot of times you'll have to send the PDF of your score report. Or for larger scholarships, there is the option to send those scores directly from the College Board itself. So there will be ways to do that. Sometimes it's a screenshot. A lot of times it's the official score report that they're going to want the PDF of. They've had issues with kids using some graphic design skills and changing those before, so they're going to try to make sure to verify everything as much as possible. Need-based scholarships, they're going to be looking for your FAFSA form and any other financial information. Sometimes they're going to have you check a box about how much money your family makes. Sometimes they're going to have you complete their own tax-related form. Sometimes they're going to ask for a copy of your tax return from your family. So it's important to see how many requirements they have, because there's going to be times where, something might be due February 1st, but you just filled out the FAFSA 2 weeks ago and you don't have the report that you need yet. So fill out the FAFSA as soon as possible so that you have this available to you. Obviously, if it's due January 15th, they're not going to expect you to have filed your tax return for 2024, but make sure that you have 2023 available. A little bit later, they might be looking for that 2024 one. A lot of them do require letters of recommendation. A lot of times you can simply reuse a college recommendation letter. The teacher just has to tweak one little thing in it and say, I wholeheartedly recommend Bobby for this scholarship. Fine. And sometimes that's a super easy process. Other times they may need a different individual because the letter of recommendation should be based on a specific scholarship criteria. So if it's related to a specific community service endeavor, you may need the person that ran that organization to write a letter for you. Or maybe it's going to be your school counselor at that point writing a different letter than the one they wrote for your Common App. So keep those things in mind, look over the requirements, make sure that you're touching base with your school counselor. But also, again, this is going to be where a spreadsheet comes in really handy and saying, okay, the VFW one wants to make sure that I have a letter of rec, but also the FAFSA form. And then the Rotary Club is going to want to make sure that I have my SAT scores, but they also need my tax return from 2023. So keeping track of all the many moving parts, because some last minute applications, you might not be able to get your hands on some of the things you need as quickly as possible. And a lot of times they will just say your application's incomplete and not consider you for it. After submitting, you want to stay alert for additional requests, as an organization might reach out to you and say, hey, we need a little bit more information. Hey, can you send us your tax form? We're trying to decipher something here. There's very complicated financial situations out there with divorce, property, different things, missing information. You want to make sure you're looking at your email all the time to get this, because they will email the student directly. So get on your kids a little bit about checking for those and checking their spam folders. I know generationally they're not as great with email. So make sure that you're reminding them if they use their school email to check for that, if they use their personal to check for that. Prepare for interviews if there is one. Take time to practice responses. They're going to say, tell me about yourself. They're going to say, how would this scholarship change your future? Focus on those goals and experiences and why you're a strong fit. Students do oftentimes meet with our coaches to do mock interviews for college admissions, for scholarships, for jobs. Great chance to get a sense of how you would answer those questions, especially if you're being considered for an extremely competitive one. And then if you do win an award, I can't stress this enough, send a thank you note after the fact to express that gratitude and show appreciation for the opportunity. It can be valuable for future opportunities, certainly, but it just really leaves a positive impression, and it's a lovely thing to receive a scholarship, so you do want to acknowledge it. Some common mistakes, obviously. Number one, missing the deadline and thinking you can submit it 3 days later. Not really a great option there. So you want to make sure that you are always submitting on time, maybe not at 11:59 the night that it's due, but certainly that's acceptable. But give yourself ample time and don't feel like you have to hold on to it until the end. When you're ready, let it go. Don't submit generic applications without tailoring. They will know that you just submitted the same essay everywhere. If it doesn't tie in a little bit to the organization or tie in more so to how you're a fit for this particular type of scholarship. Don't ignore the eligibility requirements. By that, I don't mean like you have to apply to only the ones that you were very perfect for. There are going to be some out there where you check off some of the boxes, but not all. You still want to apply, but don't apply to something out there that's definitely not going to be given to you. That just adds another piece of paper to them. If it's an award that's specifically for students that played soccer and you never have, don't apply just to every single one on the website. And don't overlook those smaller or more niche scholarships. You definitely want to be able to apply to those and see what's out there. Even if it's $100, what's 10 minutes of your time to fill that out and just to make something a little bit easier? And then there's going to be $500 ones, $750 ones, $3,000 ones. Go check those out and make sure that you're seeing that there's a ton, like we said, 50 to 100 that you should be eligible for. All right, I'll touch on staying organized briefly here, and I'll share some of this with you all after tonight's webinar, but you want to track deadlines and requirements in a spreadsheet, like I mentioned, and tag them on your Google Calendar. And then you want to create a checklist for every scholarship. Do they need an essay? Do they need a letter? Like some of them will say, we want a letter from one of your parents. Some of them will say they want a letter of recommendation from, someone within a religious organization. Make sure you're putting like you can add those little check boxes on Excel, for example, and check all these little things off. What financial documents do we need that we don't have right now? What do we need to go get from last year's taxes? What do we need to do in terms of making sure we fill out the FAFSA in time? Again, work with a college coach to stay on top of this entire process. They can anticipate certain things for you and let you know that certain things take longer or that there might be something else required there that we're missing. It's important to make sure that you get that specific guidance. Set weekly goals, because this is going to be going on while you still have a ton of homework or while your student still has a ton of homework and other things going on, and the craziness of second semester of senior year for those of you that are seniors, where it should be a lot of fun and there should be other things going on, and you're going to be moving towards AP exams, so you're going to be stressed out about that and other things that are happening. Make sure you set some weekly goals for this. You don't want to miss an opportunity that you're perfect for. All right, so a couple of next steps here. Work with a college coach on these. You can dedicate a certain amount of hours to this. I've seen students dedicate 6 to 10 hours with a college coach on this. I've seen some students do 25 hours with a college coach on this, but something to give yourself that leg up. You want to make the most of this opportunity, just like you did with your college applications. Complete the FAFSA. Do it now. If you haven't done it yet, make sure that that's complete. Obviously, if you are a junior or younger, or your child is a junior or younger, you do not need to complete the FAFSA yet. That will be next year. But if you are the parent of a senior, complete the FAFSA form, no matter the level of need. Even if you think you are not eligible for need-based aid, complete it. Some of these forms will require that report from you regardless. And make accounts on scholarship websites, see what's listed at the guidance department, and check with your employer for more scholarships. Keep searching, see what's out there. Just Google random scholarships too. Be like, are there any scholarships for redheads? Stuff like that. Are there scholarships for people that are of Irish descent that live in Massachusetts? Which ones are there? Go find out what they are. All right, so I know we don't have a lot of time, and I know I've gone over into your Tuesday night at 6:05. But if you have any questions, I can take a peek in the Q&A, but also you can certainly email me any questions that you might have, and I can be of assistance with that, or I can get you hooked up with a really great college coach to help work through some of those more specific questions tailored to who your student is and what their qualifications are and how we can be helpful. But certainly I'm here to help with all of that. And I did want to mention, if any of you are still in the position where you need any SAT prep, for those of you that are juniors or maybe a senior who's taking one more, perhaps for a placement purpose or anything like that, we do have the very last mock test of the year coming up this Saturday, December 14th. So it's an opportunity to get access to a fantastic workbook with 1,400 practice questions in it, in-depth analysis on your results, and to simulate test day and build that confidence. So if you're on the younger side and still taking tests, if you're a senior who needs one for a particular reason, do let me know. I'll send you the link for this as well. And then you get the opportunity to meet with someone like myself to go over the results. So you could end up meeting with me to review them and come up with a really personalized plan. And I did also want to say, as a big thank you for letting me talk at you a lot tonight about scholarships and the many ways that you can get some. I did want to say that for those of you attending tonight, I'm happy to offer buy 10 hours of college coaching, tutoring, and get 2 hours free. Certainly, if you don't use them all for college coaching, you can use them for test prep or subject tutoring, or you can start with this for college coaching and add more on later. We can talk about it, but I did want to make sure that I offered you something for attending tonight and bearing with me as I went through every possible scholarship situation as there is. So that's it for tonight, everyone. I will share the recording with everyone. I'll share any of the other necessary links that could be helpful from tonight. And certainly I will be here if you have any questions. So again, I don't see any questions in the Q&A, so I think we're in good shape to call it a night. Again, thank you so much for attending tonight. I hope you all found this helpful, and good luck to you and your students as you go through this process. Thanks so much. Take care and happy holidays.